Okay, so in today's video, I'm going to be giving you the step-by-step walkthrough of setting up an Airtable powered Glide app. Now, if you've been following my channel for a while, you know that I run the Unicorn Factory, which is a freelance marketplace. I've also worked on a bunch of job boards and directory businesses. And one of the big challenges with the stack that we are using to create these sites is user accounts. And in the past, I used tools like MemberStack in order to configure user accounts, but I've just found that there's just too much fiddling around. And so I've been exploring a whole bunch of different tools to see what I could use in order to create user functionality. And Glide has hands down emerged as the go-to tool for me. So I've been using Glide now for about a year, and it has been absolutely awesome. And so today I want to introduce you to it by taking you through the exact step-by-step process of converting your Airtable base into a fully functioning app that your users can use to either update their profiles and to, apply for jobs, to, add portfolio items, and so on. So there are 5 key things that we're going to be going over today. First of all, I'm going to show you how to set it up, how you can make Airtable your database inside of your Glide app. Then I'm going to show you how to configure user accounts, because if you want every single one of your users to have a login, there's a certain setup that you're going to need. Then I'm also going to show you the basics of configuring the app interface, how you can set up screens and how you pull in lists and how you can display Airtable data inside of your app. And then I'm also going to be diving into creating key app functionality, like the ability to create new Airtable records, the ability to edit existing ones. And then finally, I'm also going to show you how you can use role-based permissions. So for example, allowing certain users to have certain kinds of access based on the role that they have. So if you run a freelancer marketplace, for example, the ability to give freelancers access to certain parts of the app, whilst employers have access to other parts of the app. And whilst there is just way too much to cover when it comes to Glide in one particular video, this here will really give you the 80-20 and set you up for future videos that are coming. Now, I've got so much to cover, so I'm not even going to beat around the bush. If you're interested in more videos like this, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, and let's get straight into it. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to configure our new app, and we are going to connect it to an Airtable source. Now, once you select Airtable as your source, what you'll have to do is look for your Airtable base and then just simply create the app. Now, the process of creating the app doesn't take too long. It takes about a minute or two for the entire project to be configured. And as it gets imported, you'll be able to see how your app is created inside of Glide. Now, there are a few things that I recommend doing before you start building out your app interface. The first thing is to just check the data sources. So your data source is essentially where you establish your Glide database. Now, because we selected Airtable as our data source when we started, you should see all of the Airtable tables reflected inside of your Glide app. So we can see here, I've got a table for my users. I've got a table for all of my jobs. I've got a table for all of the applications for jobs, and then I also have a list of all of the companies that listed the jobs. Now, all of this data should be the exact same as inside of your Airtable base. So I just recommend just double checking that everything transferred over properly, and if it is all correct, we will be able to move on to the next stage, which is to configure our user accounts. Now, whenever you start a new Glide app, Glide will automatically create a table for your users. Now, in my case, it has created a table where I am the only logged in user. However, we need to now configure it that it actually uses our users table from Airtable as our users data table source, because that will allow us to then give individual logins for every single user that sits inside of that database. So in this particular case, you can see that I've got 4 users inside of my users table. And what I want to do now is ensure that whenever any of these users log into my Glide app, that they can access it. And the way that we're going to do it is we're going to go into the settings tab, and then we're going to head over to where it says users and authentication. Now, inside of the users and authentication section, you'll see a users table source. And by default, it will select the default users table that Glide creates for you. What we want to do is we want to switch that from the default table to the users table that was imported with Airtable. As soon as that is done, we can then go ahead and delete our users table that Glide created for us. And it should now just leave us with all of the tables that we also have inside of our Airtable base. Now, you'll know that you did this correctly if you can now see a selection of users in our dropdown under the layout section. What this will allow you to do is to view the app based on a different user inside of your user app. Now, to illustrate this, the best way to see how this works is by adding a text field and to then simply add a welcome text. So in this case, I'm going to say welcome, and now I'm going to add a dynamic variable based on the logged in user. And the way that I can select a user variable is to simply select user profile and then name, and then I can just simply go in here. I can change the text style to heading large. And just like that, you can see that it now displays my name, welcome Alice Wonderland. And now if I switch to another user, you'll see that the headline changes. That essentially means that every single person in our users table has their own login. Now, the next thing that we might want to do is to configure the different screens that we will want in our app. Now, by default, Glide is going to add a screen for every single table that you import. So you can see here we've got a table for our users, jobs, applications, and companies. Within the navigation page, these count as individual pages. So even if we go ahead and look at the navigation, you'll be able to see in the web view that the tabs above go to each individual page. What I typically do when I start a project is I just simply delete all tables and just start from scratch. So given that we are working on a job board, what I want to do is create a screen for all of the open jobs. So what I'll do is, just like I did there, create a custom screen. And then in here, I am going to select the source table as the jobs table. And just like that, as soon as you select a table, it will automatically import all of the records that sit in this table. So in this case, we've got a jobs table and we have 5 jobs in here. What Glide will do is we'll automatically import a collection with all of the jobs. And now we can start customizing it. So the first thing that we will want to do is to add our collection. So as I said, Glide adds it by default, but just to show you how it works, we can go in here, we can select a list, a collection list, or a table, or a data grid, or cards. And for this example, we're going to be using a list. And then from here, what we'll be able to do is to simply map the values of our Airtable record, or in this case, our Glide records, to the different components within our list. So in this case, I want to keep my job title as is. My job description, I want to populate this with the location. And so now you can see how it displays a location. In the meta field, I want to simply go ahead and add the employment type. And then for the image field, because I currently don't have an image associated with that, I'm just going to simply remove it. And just like that, we have configured the first page inside of our app. From here, if you want to style it further, what I like to do is I just like to put these into the card format. So I'm just going to change my background to card, just like that. Now we're good to go. Now, the next thing that we want to do when we add our collection or any type of style for that matter is to disable the default actions that Glide automatically implements. Now, what do I mean by that? At the moment, you may have noticed that there's an add button. Now, whenever someone clicks on the add button, it will open a pop-up that will essentially allow your logged in users to add new rows to your database field. Now, we don't want employees to be able to add new jobs. This is something that is only reserved for employers. So what we're going to do is we're going to navigate our way over to the Actions tab, and we're going to remove the default settings, which allows users to add items. And we're also going to remove the ability for users to edit items, just like that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to enable advanced actions. Now, in the advanced action sections, we're able to add different buttons. Now, for example, we can add a title bar action, which adds a button back up here, and we can select from a bunch of different options. In this case, I don't want to add this. So what I'm going to do is I am simply going to remove it by selecting the action to be none. Then item click is when I actually click on the item. And as you can see, it automatically redirects you to a screen, which is called the detail screen. And so it will show you details in regards to the record that you clicked on. And what I want to do here is I simply want to open this one as an overlay. So I'm going to switch the target from current to overlay. And now when I click on it, it will simply open it up like that. Okay, now there are a few additional action options. For example, you can add collection item actions. So for example, if you want to add, the ability to apply, you can go ahead, you can add an action, for example, to open up a form screen like this, and we can set our target to be overlay. When then someone clicks this, we can then go ahead and select our destination and go from there. Now I'm going to circle back to that later on. For now, what we want to do is we want to remove our collection items action, and we just want to enable a user to see the detail screen when they click on one of the items here. Okay, so let's move on. Let's click on the job title, and actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the target to current, so it actually opens it up in a new screen. And now what I might want to do in here is give a user the ability to apply for a job. Now, if we have a look at how we structure this inside of Airtable, you'll see that we have a table for applications. And so what I would expect someone to do is for a user to simply apply, and that will then create a new row in our applications table that references the user that applied, the job they applied for, and also the date that they were submitted on, as well as a status field. So let's create this functionality. The first thing that we're going to do is we are going to need to define our action. Now at the moment it says edit, but again, we don't want to allow our users to edit this particular job listing. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the text from edit to apply, and we're going to change the action from show edit screen to show form screen. Now, when we click on the form screen, we want this to appear as an overlay. And what this will do is it will allow us to send data to a specified destination table. Now, if we look at this inside of Airtable, we want to add this row to our applications table. So we're going to go back to Glide and we're going to select our destinations table to be the applications table. This will now automatically populate all of the fields that sit inside of this particular destination table. So we've got our application ID, our submission date, our status field, our cover letter, our user, and our job. So if we go back to our Airtable base, you will see that we have our application ID, our user field, our job field. We also have our submission date, status field, resume, and cover letter. Now, what we need to do next is we need to determine what fields we need the user to submit. So what I typically like to do in this situation is go through it one by one. Now, do we need them to submit the application ID? The answer is no. We want to specify the application ID. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a unique identifier for this particular application. And inside of Glide, there's a special value called unique identifier that we can select that we can now map to the column called application ID. Now, as soon as we've added this column, we can simply remove our text entry field where a user can manually specify this field. Next, we have our submission date. Now, our submission date is, again, another field that we don't want the user to submit. We want to automatically populate our submission date field with the date that the form was submitted on. And so again, Glide has a special value called the current date time field that we're going to click on now. And we're going to map the result of the current date and time to the submission date field. And then we're going to remove our data entry field for dates. Next, status. Now the status field, whenever someone applies, we automatically want to switch the status to pending. Now, if you see in here, we've got a few options: pending, review, accepted, and rejected. We want it always to be pending by default. So what we're going to do here is we're simply going to set the default value to pending. Now, we don't want our users to be able to edit this, which means that one way that we can stop people from editing this is by hiding the status field. And so the way that we're going to do that is by selecting our status field and then heading over to the options table and then using conditional visibility to only display this particular field when the logged in user's email address is empty. Now, because a logged in user's email will always be there, it will basically have the effect that this particular field will submit with the default value of pending, but hide the field so that a user cannot edit it. Next, we've got our cover letter field, and inside of my Airtable base, the cover letter field is just a long text. And what we're going to do in here is we're going to allow our users to basically specify why they are a good fit for this role. Now, this is a text field, so we're just going to leave that as is. And what a user will be able to do is when they apply, they'll be able to just fill out some details, and that information will then be sent through to us for review. Then we've got two more fields, the user field and the job field. Now, inside of our user field, we want to specify who the user is that submitted the application, and we also want to specify what job they applied for. And so once again, Glide has two fields that we can use for this. Number one is it's called the user profile row. And what this does is it basically determines who is the logged in user at any given time. And so in this case, it's Dora Explorer. And we want to make sure that this user profile row is mapped to our user column in the applications table. So we've selected that and we can simply remove our choice field. And then for the job field, we can do the exact same. We can simply select the values from screen, and the screen that we're currently on is this job, the Chief Fun Officer. And we can simply say, hey, take this row from our app and map that to the job field, and then remove the choice drop-down option. And now we've essentially created the functionality where a user, so let's say in this case, Bob the Builder, can apply for a job and say, this would be fantastic. And then when they submit it, what will happen is it will automatically add Bob the Builder's application to our database with a unique application ID, the submission date, a status, a linked user, and also a linked job. If we go a little bit further, let's see if we can go all the way over. Oh no, our cover letter is right here, so we can also see the cover letter entry. And now when we go into our Airtable base, we'll be able to see that a new job gets added. And just like that, we can see here that our unique user was added. So in this case, Bob the Builder. It's applied for the Chief Fun Officer role. We can see the unique application ID, and we can also see the cover letter. And so just like that, we've created the functionality that will allow people to log in. So let's log in as Dora the Explorer, and we will now go to another job. We'll apply for this, and we'll just say, I like ice cream. We'll hit the submit button. And once again, you'll see that it shows up in the applications table, just like this. Now these fields here are lookups, so what we're going to do is we're just going to hide these columns because we need to wait for Airtable to calculate it. But you can see here that the most crucial information was added. And then when we go back into our Airtable base, you can see that it was added just like that. And we now have a record of this application inside of Airtable. And that is essentially how you can create the functionality where your logged in users can add rows to your Airtable base. Now, another feature that you typically need in these types of apps is the ability for your users to edit the accounts. And this is another thing that is very easy to set up with Glide. So in this particular case, we're in the user profile screen, which can be used to allow your users to manage their accounts. And what we're going to do here is we're going to add an action, and the action that we're going to use is going to be to open the edit screen. Now, because we're on the user profile screen, whenever someone opens the edit screen, it will actually open up the user record. So in short, if we look at this in Airtable, it will open this record here. Now, once again, similar to the previous example, we can actually specify what we want our users to change or not change. So we don't want them to update the user ID. We don't want them to update their email. We don't want them to update their role. We don't want them to update, we can let them update their profile picture. We don't want them to change their joined date. We don't want, let's let them keep their company that they can change. Then we don't want them to change the applications, and we don't want them to change jobs. So essentially they have 3 fields that they can change: their name, their profile image, and then also the company that they work for. Now, one thing that is very neat about Glide is that once someone comes in here and makes a change, so in this case, let's change it from Dora Explorer to Dora Adventurer. As soon as they hit the submit button, these changes will automatically be reflected in the app. So you can see here how it automatically updates. We can also see how this updates inside of our user table. It updates to Dora Adventurer. And now when we jump into our Airtable base, you will also see that our name field has changed as well, which is perfect if you are creating, things like freelancer directories where a freelancer might want to update their profile. You can just simply create that functionality directly inside of Glide, and it will automatically sync into your Airtable base. Now, another thing that we can add to our user profile screen is maybe a list of all of the jobs that a particular employee has applied for. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a new container, and inside of this container, we're going to add a list. Now, we can select our applications table, which will automatically display all of the applications that have been made through our app, or we can filter it by the logged in user. So in this case, we're logged in as Dora Adventurer. And so what we can say is, hey, only display applications by the logged in user. And so the way that we do that is we just go to user profile row, we go to applications, and you'll see that just like that, it has filtered out only the applications that are related to this particular employee. And so what we're going to do is we're going to quickly clean this up. So the image field, we're going to remove, we're going to leave the status as is. We're also going to change the meta field to, let's change the meta field to status, and the description can be, maybe the job title. So in order for us to retrieve the job title, what we can do is we can go to the applications field, and then in here use a lookup field. And so I'll show you how to add a lookup field. So we'll go job, and we'll go title, and then the type is a lookup. And this works very similar to how Airtable works. We're going to go job, and we're just going to look up the job title. And then maybe another field that we will want to add is the job employment type. And I recommend setting up these lookup fields inside of Glide instead of inside of Airtable, because it just performs a lot faster. So we're just going to add these 2 fields. And as soon as we've added these 2 fields in here, we are actually able to map them inside of our app. So I'm going to make the title of this my job title, and the description is just going to be the job employment type. And so the last thing to do here is to remove the default actions. And in fact, in this particular example, I'm actually going to remove the last action as well. And now a logged in user will be able to see what jobs they applied for and what the status of their application is. And if we now switch through all of the different users, you'll see that every person has applied for different jobs. And from here, we are able to, have unique dashboards for our users. Now, one last little thing that is worth checking out is that sometimes different users will have different roles. So if you run a freelancer marketplace or a job board, you'll have the employers and the employees. So in this particular case, I've got 2 users who are employees and 2 users who are employers. Now, depending on whether someone is an employer or an employee, we will be able to do different things. So in this particular case, just to see what everyone is, I'm going to add a text field in here above the user, and I'm going to simply state their role. And so we can see now that Dora Adventurer is an employer, Charlie Chocolate is an employee. Now, if someone is an employee, we might want to give them the ability to apply for jobs, which we already have. But if someone is not an employee, they're an employer, we might not want to give them the ability to apply for jobs. And so how do we do this? So at the moment, we have an apply button in here. And what we might want to do is we might want to say, hey, we only want to display the apply button when the logged in user, and so once again, we go to the user profile and we go to role, is employee. So only show this when the role is an employee. Okay. So once again, just to illustrate what everyone is, we're just going to add user profile row. So we can see, hey, this person is an employee, so they can apply, but Dora Adventurer is an employer, as we can see here, so they cannot apply. Okay. And on the same note, if we want to give an employer the ability to add a new job, what we can do is we can click on our collection and we can add a title bar action, which is to add a new job. And we can set our title action to be form screen, because we're going to use our form screen to create a new row inside of our form field. We're going to make this an overlay, and we're going to set our destination table to be the jobs table. And then once again, we can go through the process of selecting, what it is that we want to select. But key thing that we want to do here is we only want to make this field available if, and so we'll go to our action screen, we'll go to our title bar action, if the logged in user's role is employer. So if it's an employer, we want to give them the permission to add a new job, but if they are an employee, we don't want to give them the permission. And just like that, we have set up the functionality where users can add new rows to our Airtable database. We've added the ability for them to update rows inside of our Airtable database by allowing them to edit their profiles. And then we also added conditional visibility and actions based on their role. So just like that, we've really created the main functionality of an app. Now, I'm going to be diving a lot deeper into some of the Airtable and Glide configurations in the future. This here is really just an entry video just to show you what's possible with these tools. I didn't even touch on some of the basic things like how to brand your app and all those kind of things. But this is something that I use on the Unicorn Factory for my freelancer and my client portals. A whole bunch of my clients use this as their user portals for their job boards and marketplaces. And there are really, really a lot of great things that you can do with it. Now, there are a few key little things that I want to leave you with. If we go into our Airtable base and we decide to change our data inside of Airtable, then all of this information will also sync into Glide. However, there will be a slight delay. And the reason for that is how Glide and Airtable sync with each other. So what Glide does is it actually checks every 3 to 5 minutes whether or not any changes have happened to one of the records inside of your Airtable base. If there has been a change, it will then, after 3 minutes, sync all of that new data back into the Glide app. However, there will be a slight lag. Now, that might lead to sometimes the app feeling a little bit janky because you're waiting for Airtable to either calculate fields or to update certain fields. However, there are some pretty neat workarounds that I will talk about in a future video. For now, just what I recommend doing is having a play around with Glide and experimenting with it a bit. You don't necessarily need to use Airtable as your data source. You can also use a whole bunch of other tables like Google Sheets. You can use their own inbuilt tables like Glide tables and a whole bunch more. For now, the best way is to just get started. I'm going to leave a link in the description down below, so if you want to create an account and play around with it, you'll be more than welcome to. If you want to learn more about this, I'll also leave a link to the MVMP Labs, which is my online community where I share a whole bunch of tutorials on how to use tools like Webflow, Airtable, Make.com, Glide, and so on to build projects like job boards, marketplaces, and directory businesses. So that is pretty much it. If you found it useful, also let me know down below if you have any questions. Other than that, I'll see you back here for the next video. Bye.